guys, and welcome to my review of One Piece chapter 854. I'm gonna try a little different format for these reviews because I want to make them just a little bit shorter and then just have discussions in the comments as I usually have anyway. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna choose topics from the chapters that I find most important or most talk about worthy, because sometimes I just go through every single thing and sometimes it's not really necessary, I think. And if it's like really obvious things that you want to talk about or some really out there theory or something, leave it in the comments and we can discuss it, because we all know that I respond to your comments anyway. So yeah, let's just get into it. I have two things I want to discuss, and the first thing is Brook, because as soon as I read the stuff about Brook, I was like, yes, this is something that I'm gonna talk a lot about in my review, because we find out that Brook actually managed to injure Prometheus, and it's the first time that Prometheus, and I'm guessing that this includes Zeus as well, has been injured when battling or whatever. So that's just like credit to Brook, because holy crap, he did something no one else had done to the two creatures made from Big Mom's souls that she always has with her. That's impressive, like really, really impressive. It's like Oda giving us all these solid hints that Brook is so much more badass than we give him credit for. I wish we would have seen that battle. Like, obviously he lost. I mean, we have the results and there was no way he would win against Big Mom, but damn, he did a pretty good job anyway. I mean, damn Brook, damn. And I think it's really interesting because a lot of people have been saying, and I think I've said so in a couple of reviews myself, like, their Big Mom and Brook's affinity are really interesting because they both have soul powers. And I remember I was listening to the One Piece podcast a few months back, and a lot of them, or one of them, I don't remember who, mentioned the fact that they always wondered why why Oda never called Brook's power the soul fruit, and it then makes sense that, okay, now we have Big Mom's devil fruit power, which is the soul fruit, so that again just makes a lot of sense that their devil fruit powers are so similar in what they do, because they both deal with souls. In Brook's case, it's just his own, and Big Mom, it's her own as well as others, which is then really interesting because it raises the question, if is there any way for Brook to do something to other people's souls? Because obviously, like, Prometheus is made from Big Mom's soul, like, it's like the essence of her soul, and he managed to injure the Prometheus. So I find that super interesting, and I feel like it was more than just Brook being really smart and clever and strong that he injured Prometheus. I feel like it might have been something to do with his stellar fruit power, and of course the fact that he's super badass. And I think the fact that Big Mom is keeping him by her side is going to be super important, not just because that means that Brook won't be locked up somewhere but he'll be close to her, but just because of their powers as well. I think that's super interesting, because I feel like there's so many things you could do with Brook's stellar fruit power, and we've seen a little of it, but I feel like with this arc, and as I said with Big Mom, it's just it's so obvious for it now to become something really great and something that's just out of this world. Also, just quickly, now Brook has found out about Pudding, and he also knows about the plan to assassinate the entire Vinsmoke family, which is again super interesting because now we have both Sanji, Reiju, and Brook knowing about it. Sanji is gonna be sure to tell Luffy whenever they meet up. I am completely 100% sure that they will meet up now. Which just leaves Chopper's group, which of this moment is the biggest group, and I have a feeling that they will find out pretty soon as well. But we're just gonna have to wait and see how that goes down. I'm not gonna talk about Nami, Chopper, Jinbei's group. That it's pretty obvious what happened with them. Let me just jump into Sanji now first, just before I go into what is actually my second topic, because I said 2 chapters ago, I think it was, that now that Sanji had gotten the pep talk from Reiju, he was sure to act. And even so, in this chapter, it takes him like one further push before he actually acts and then goes to meet Luffy. And while at first I was a little disappointed to see him still wanting to just sacrifice himself and just let the others go, I actually think that that was a necessary evil to give us this moment, which I thought was much more impactful than Reiju's speech would have been, because even with the speech, as powerful as it was, as nice as it was, and as just, it broke down Sanji's character and what his insecurities was and all that. And I talked about it a lot. I think this is more impactful because it had something to do with food, and it had something to do with Luffy directly. It wasn't just a speech about them, it was something that where someone directly tried to take away something that Sanji would and should give to Luffy. It was the bond that connected them for the first time. Luffy tasted Sanji food, he saw him and was like, "You're a chef, come join my crew." Food is what connected them in the first place, so it makes sense for this to happen in this way, because food is the one thing that, like, it really connects them, the chef and the glutton. And for Sanji to figure out in the moment where someone was trying to take away something that he had made for Luffy, even unconsciously, and for that to be the catalyzing factor in Sanji being like, "No, fuck off, I am a Straw Hat and that's not gonna change," I think that's powerful. And even if it was annoying that it took a little too long to get to that point, I think that it's okay because this arc hasn't actually been that long. It just feels that way because we read it week to week. But I have a feeling that when you read this arc in one fell swoop, this is gonna be much more impactful. So yeah, I just really like that moment. But the second thing I want to talk about, that I actually really want to discuss, I mentioned this briefly by the end of my live reaction, and that is the very likely possibility now that, or maybe not, I've been talking against this theory, but the likely theory that, I don't want to say likely, that the Vinsmokes might actually end up allying themselves with the Straw Hats temporarily. And the reason that I feel like now with this chapter that it's a possibility is because of how big of a threat Big Mom suddenly seems to be and how little of a threat the Vinsmoke seems to be. The Vinsmoke seem to be solely there for Sanji's part of the story, and for Sanji's character development, and for Sanji's backstory, and to amplify Sanji's internal fears. Because the reason, as I discussed in my character analysis of Sanji, if you saw that, it's an hour long, I'm really sorry about that. If you haven't watched, that's fine because it's really long. But the Vinsmokes really amplified the fears inside Sanji. I don't amplify the fears inside Sanji? What the heck? The threat of the Vinsmokes were made out to be a lot bigger than they were because we saw it a lot through Sanji's eyes. If you see what I mean, like the way that Ijiji and Niji were introduced with Sanji just trembling and being really scared, and the way that we saw, like, we had Sanji's flashback where he was really scared and sad and all those things, like, because we see a lot through Sanji's eyes and through the eyes that he's always had on them, because when he knew them he was a child, of course he was a lot more afraid than he would be now had he met them in the same circumstances. We see them as a much bigger threat, and on top of that, they have all these like legends about them. They have like the Germa Kingdom, the mythical army, blah blah blah. So they just, from the get-go, seem like this really strong and powerful threat, when in reality they really, really fade when you compare them to Big Mom, who's a much bigger threat and could crush them by just like walking by. So with that being said, I think there's a possibility for the Vinsmokes to temporarily team up with the Straw Hats, because in the face of an enemy as strong as Big Mom, it's important for them to maybe kind of work together. But as I also said in my live reaction, it all depends on how much information the Straw Hats are given about how the Vinsmokes treated Sanji, because they won't actually forgive them if they find out. But we also know that Luffy isn't one for backstory anyway, so there is a small or pretty big possibility that he won't actually find out. Again, we haven't, because Sanji hasn't been seen around the Vinsmoke family ever since they're fighting against each other, and at that point in time Sanji was pretty much caught up in just making Luffy and Nami go away, so he wasn't really showing any of his like fears and insecurity around his family at that point in time. But of course you still need to remember that Luffy did pick up on the fact that he was really sad, so there's still that. But Luffy can still interpret that as Sanji being sad because he has to leave the crew, which of course is a big part of it, but also childhood trauma. What I'm trying to get at here is that Luffy won't forgive Sanji's family for what they did to him, but if Sanji just doesn't tell him, then there's a possibility for them to be able to, at the very least, have a temporary alliance to help each other either take down Big Mom, all escape safely, or whatever. Although this is Luffy, and if things just doesn't end in good terms in any way possible, Luffy will have to fight her, which I personally don't want that. I wanted Kaido to be the first Yonko that he fights and defeats. I never wanted Big Mom to be a legit enemy, though it does really seem that way at this point in time, because she did plan on killing both the Straw Hats and the Vinsmokes and just everyone around her. So I don't see how Big Mom at this point could turn into an ally unless something really big is revealed, like she was lying all along, but I don't know why she would do that. But yeah, I think that would be it would be interesting to turn the story around in a way where the Vinsmokes ended up being the allies, because in the beginning they were like built up to become the villains of the arc, and they were just built up to be these horrible, horrible people. And I'm not saying that they are not, they've all done some horrible things, but it's so interesting the way that they have been built up, and we know that they're artificial humans, or some of them are anyway, and I just find them so interesting. I'm not entirely sure how the alliance thing would end up, or how they would, what they would do when they eventually reach their goal or obtain their goal, because the thing is, by the end of the arc, I feel like for the Germa Kingdom, there are only two possible solutions for them, or three maybe. Either they get dissolved either by choice or because Big Mom destroys them, or they will have to like get a new leader. And if they have to get a new leader, my pick would obviously be Reiju. I've been for Reiju becoming the queen of the Germa, even like from the get-go of this arc when we met her for the first time, even though I did also believe that she was going to be anti-Straw Hat. I always wanted her to be the queen. Now she just, at this point she would then be friendly with them, but that doesn't change the fact that I want her to rule the kingdom. That would be really great. And it'd be interesting to see if they were still allowed in the Reverie at that point, because the Reverie is very soon and they haven't actually been kicked out of the world government just yet. So that would be a really interesting dynamic. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure where the Germa would go after this. It entirely depends on what happens, because there is still the big possibility that the Germa won't ally themselves with the Straw Hats. I think I said this consistently a few chapters back, and from around August and throughout the whole of 2016, I think I've said that I would really love for like the wedding to become like a battle royale. So we had all of these different sides just battling it out. So we have the Straw Hats, we have Big Mom's crew, we have the Germa, we have Capone, we have Caesar for some reason, we have maybe others. Still, I don't believe there will be any newcomers. I have said time and time again, if any new people should come in at this point in the arc, it should be Gin, but I think we're almost at a point where it makes no sense to introduce new people. Almost. So there's that. But I feel like, I really hope it ends up in a battle royale, because, or in a very, very weird alliance between the Straw Hats and the Vinsmoke, like an alliance that they don't want to happen, but is a necessary evil because Big Mom is such a big threat. But I think ultimately that's what I'm gonna say about this, because I know I've been talking for about 12 to 15 minutes now, so I'm gonna end this here. You can leave a thumbs up if you like anything that I have to say. Leave in the comments below what else you want to discuss, because I know I skipped over a few things. That was done purposely because I didn't want this to be too long. And you can subscribe if you want to see more of me, and until next time, bye!